Welcome to our second video on credit and debt. Today we're going to start off by talking about the different types of credit. So in life, there may be times when your expenses exceed the amount of money that you have currently, and this is when borrowing will be necessary. But borrowing is not free, there's a cost to it. So that's reflected in your interest rate, and this varies based on the type of credit that's being given. So if a loan is a very high risk loan, the chances are that the interest rate is going to be really high, and the higher the interest rate, essentially, the higher the cost of borrowing.
All right, so I'm going to go into the types of credit. Believe it or not, borrowing money from your family and friends is technically a type of credit. If you borrow money from family or friends, you probably will get an interest rate of 0%. And one of the things about this is that if your repayment doesn't happen properly, maybe you don't repay in time, or you don't repay the exact amount, or it never occurs, then family relationships and friendships can probably get damaged. So you don't want to always rely on that. For that reason, and the fact that friends and family aren't always in the business of loaning money, a person who needs extra money may opt to use a credit card to make a purchase instead when the need excess exceeds the money on hand. And you will repay this with interest along later. So if you need to purchase something for $1,000 and can repay it in a short period of time, credit cards may not be a bad option. If you pay your balance at the end of every month, credit cards can be a source of 0% financing. If your repayment plan isn't in the foreseeable future, a credit card is likely not a good option due to the high interest rates. So, banks offer personal loans with interest rates lower than credit cards. This is an option for someone with a good relationship with their bank and a good credit rating. However, if you have poor credit, a bank loan may not be an option. Bank fees should also be taken into consideration. Typically, bank loans are utilized when borrowing a large amount of money. Next up is your 401k or IRA. As a last resort, a person could borrow from their individual retirement account, but this has many negatives and is not recommended. You have to pay taxes on the money that has been withdrawn, and there's usually a 10% penalty for withdrawing funds before the age 59.5. An even less attractive option is to take out a payday loan. This is a short-term cash loan with an average term of 2 weeks. It can provide money in a pinch even if you have poor credit, but at an exuberant annual percentage rate ranging from 100% to 800%. Often when someone finds themselves using this type of high interest resource for money, a perpetual cycle can occur and make it extremely difficult to get ahead financially. In conclusion, you should always check the interest rate before borrowing money, since this will show the true cost of borrowing. And a grace period is a term to know. So a grace period is a time between the end of a billing cycle and the date your payment is due for a credit card. And it's the time for you to pay your new charges without having to pay interest on the new balance. Card issuers that provide a grace period must establish procedures to assure that bills are mailed or delivered at least 21 days before they are due.
So, calculating interest. So, what happens is that you have this thing called the annual percentage rate. And this is what makes understanding the interest rate on credit cards so complex and confusing because number one, if you pay off your entire balance each month, you won't have to worry about interest charges. And so, like I said before, interest rates are known as annual percentage rates. So for most people, their credit card APR will fall between 12.99% and 29.99%. The majority of these credit card companies use something called the daily balance method. So this is where the interest is calculated each day you carry a balance. So for example, if you didn't pay your full balance that month and your APR is 15%, then your daily balance would be 15% divided by 365 days to get that percentage rate of 0.0411%. So essentially, you'll be charged exactly 0.411% each day a given amount is not paid. And the APR advertised on that credit card is the nominal rate, which is the rate before daily compounding is taken into account. So your real or your effective interest rate is higher because of daily compounding, which is really, really bad. Credit card companies also charge fees additionally to the interest for using the company's credit card. So some types of fees include application, annual membership, setup, over the limit, and credit limit increase.
All right, so here are some things that are needed for your credit card, mortgage, and auto loan. We're not going to go into that much depth over your mortgage and auto loan, but the information is on the slide if you would like to look at it. So for your credit card, you need to have your legal name, your birth date, your address, your social security number, which will be used to check your credit. And for those of you who don't know, a social security number is a unique number given to each US citizen that is used for identification purposes. This is the number that will be used to pull out a borrower's credit report. And finally, your annual income, which will help you determine whether you will be able to pay your credit card bill and what your credit limit should be.
So monthly payments. So a credit card will have a minimum monthly payment, but if possible, a person should pay more than that when paying off a credit card. Otherwise, you'll be subject to the interest rates I talked about earlier. But usually the required minimum monthly payment is only 1% to 3% of the total outstanding balance, depending on the credit card. Credit cards have really high interest rates, like I said before, many which range from 12% to 22%. So the actual credit card bill will actually grow each month it's not paid off. And if a person only pays the minimum monthly payment, it's going to take longer to pay off the bill.
All right, next up is credit utilization. So on the other hand, it's not good to keep a credit card balance of $0 from month to month because that will show up as a 0% credit utilization, which usually lowers your credit score compared to a small 1 to 10% utilization. But also having a very high credit utilization also negatively affects the score. So calculating this utilization is simply taking the total amount of credit card balances over the total amount of credit limits. Here is an example. If you'd like to solve that on your own, you can pause the video. Okay, so for those of you who solved it, the correct answer is Nicole's credit card utilization is 55%. So net worth is calculated with your assets minus your liabilities. And we're going to go into debt now. So debt increases a person's liabilities, which reduces their net worth.
So the effects of debt are that an excessive debt and a low net worth can have really negative long-term effects. So your debt can often limit the amount of purchasing power you have because more and more of your income is actually devoted to paying off that debt, meaning that money isn't going to spending on housing or food or entertainment or other items that you might need it for. And that's why debt also prevents flexibility and risk taking. Because if you're given an attractive investment opportunity, you might not be in a position to take it because you have to worry about your excessive debt and your low net worth first. And also, debt limits the amount of choices that you can make in life because your financial decisions are now revolving around paying your debt.
All right, now we're going to talk about a FICO credit score. So this is a type of credit score created by the Fair Isaac Corporation. It's the most trusted in the industry and used by all three major credit reporting companies, as well as 90% of lenders. FICO credit scores usually range from 300 to 850, and the higher the score, the less risky the borrower is. Although many lenders use a FICO credit score as a way to assess borrowers, the score itself doesn't indicate a good or bad borrower. There's no cutoff since many lenders have their own strategy for assessing borrowers. So to build this credit, you need to manage your credit score responsibly over time. And so the components of a FICO credit score are your payment history, your credit utilization, the length of your credit history, credit mix, and new credit/inquiries.
So rebuilding your credit score. So essentially, improvement in certain areas can actually boost your credit score, and so that's why people look to rebuild their credit because it's a big challenge that takes time and work. But over time, that bad credit can be repaired. So some steps you can take is check your credit report to see where you stand and to report any errors. You should check your score at least once a year. Um, Set up some sort of payment reminder system to help you avoid missing payments. And then if you miss payments, get current and then stay current because you want to make paying your credit on time a priority. And then keep outstanding balances on credit cards low and then high outstanding because high outstanding debt can really negatively impact your credit score. And although having lines of credit that is managed responsibly builds credit, don't open a lot of accounts rapidly as a way to build credit because it lowers the average age of your accounts and actually lowers your score. Because the best way to validate someone's credit worthiness is by looking at their credit score. And the credit worthiness of a person is the likelihood that they're going to pay his or her debts. And so that's why the most widely used credit score is the FICO score.
All right, so now talking about reducing your debt, when debt has grown to excessive level, taking steps to reduce and manage your debt becomes highly important. So here's a strategy that you can use for managing and reducing debt. First is to know how much you owe. Take time up to add all of your debt. This will let you know how much you really have to pay back. Next is to build a budget, like we mentioned in the spending and saving video. This can help you monitor spending, enable you to reduce your debt, and focus on your financial goals. The budget should be your financial map. Next is to pay more than the minimum of what is due. If you pay just the minimum monthly payment due on a credit card or loan, getting out of a high cost debt might take a very long time, and you could just end up paying a lot of interest by the time you pay off what's owed. Next is to ask your credit card company for an interest rate break. Consider asking any company that issued a credit card or loan to reduce your interest rate. Particularly if you're a good customer with a strong credit history, many companies will honor your request rather than risk losing you to the competition. If you're carrying a high balance on a card, being granted an interest rate reduction on that card could save you hundreds or even thousands of dollars in interest changes over time. And finally, it's a dip in savings, but only temporarily. If you're paying higher interest on your debt than you're earning on savings, consider using at least some of your savings to reduce the debt. Just make sure you keep enough saving in your emergency fund to cover 6 months worth of expenses in the event of an emergency, like high medical bills or a temporary loss of income.
So types of debt, there's both secured and unsecured debt. So secured debts are usually tied to an asset, such as your car for a car loan or your house for a mortgage. And so if you're stopping making payments on those secured debts, then your lenders can perhaps repossess your car or foreclose on your home. And then unsecured debts are not tied to any particular asset. So this could include credit card debt, bills for medical care, among others. So our tip is to work with your lenders because when you're trying to manage your debt, you can always go to your lenders and try to develop a plan because many of them will work with you, especially if you're struggling to pay your auto or home loans. So it's good to develop a nice close relationship with your lender, so you can prove that the struggle is going to be temporary.
All right, and finally is bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is the legal proceeding that involves a person or business that is unable to pay their debts. The bankruptcy process begins with a petition filled by the debtor, most common, or on behalf of creditors, less common. All of the debtor's assets are measured and evaluated, and then the assets are used to repay a portion of outstanding debt. Upon successful completion of bankruptcy proceedings, the debtor is relieved of their debts. This process offers an individual or business a chance to start fresh by forgiving debts that simply can't be paid, while offering creditors a chance to obtain some measure of repayment.
And some effects of bankruptcy is that this may serve as a red flag to employers, especially if the person has filed is applying for top level management. Additionally, it doesn't completely destroy all job opportunities, but companies can legally conduct a credit check, which would list your bankruptcy filing. Keep in mind, though, that it is illegal to disqualify a candidate for a job because of a bankruptcy filing, but there might be that bias. And then, however, if you do believe that you were denied a job because of this, you can file a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Additionally, credit can be more difficult to obtain and more expensive after bankruptcy, but like we talked about earlier, you can always look at steps to try to rebuild that credit.
All right, and before we leave you today, we have a client at our firm. So Benny is seeking financial advice again because he is about to go bankrupt and need financial help. help us help him out. So in this case, we want you to consider, how Benny could have gotten into this situation, how did his credit and debt, how could have that gone wrong? And also look at the steps to take in bankruptcy proceedings to help Benny out. And with that, thank you for watching this video.